Hello and welcome to another level 3 5-minute video in the series concerned with functional aids. In this short video we're going to be talking about colouring agents. Colouring agents fall into one of three categories. We either class them as pigments, or we class them as dyes, and there's one special category of dye that we refer to as an OBA, an optical brightening agent, or as the Americans call it, an FWA, a fluorescent whitening agent. So what are pigments? Pigments are insoluble materials that will change the shade of the sheet. But because pigments are insoluble, we have one problem with them, and that is they can weaken the sheet because they can interfere with fibre-fibre bonding. So the more pigment you put in to deepen the shade of the sheet, the more likely you are to weaken the sheets, reduce the tensile and the burst, etc. Dyes are soluble materials that will change the shade of the sheet. There are three different categories of dye. There are acid dyes, there are basic dyes, and there are direct dyes, and we did talk a lot more about these in the level 2 technical certificate. But the problem with dyes is if you dry the sheet wrongly, if you dry it too harshly on one side, the dyes will migrate with the water, and you'll end up with a sheet that's one shade on one side and a totally different shade on the other side. And then finally we've got optical brightening agents, or FWAs as the Americans call them. These are soluble molecules, highly conjugated double bond systems, and they react with ultraviolet light. They absorb ultraviolet light and then they re-emit the ultraviolet light in a different part of the spectrum. They emit it in the blue light, in the blue part of the spectrum, and the human eye gets a bit confused and it thinks that blue is white, so it makes things look whiter for us. So as I mentioned before, in America they're known as FWAs. So a summary of our colouring agents. Soluble colouring agents we refer to as dyes. Insoluble colouring agents we refer to as pigments. And then there's a special category of soluble dye that we call an OBA that interacts with ultraviolet light to make things brighter. Okay, well, thank you for listening to this short video, and please feel free to follow us on any of this social media.